Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Destina. This is Spiritually Bougie Astrology, and we're going to be taking a look at the astrological transits for Monday, May the 8th to the 14th. I already have my notes in the wrong spot. Yeah, 8th to the 14th. Oh, how was the eclipse? How was that eclipse? That's so fun. If you watch the forecast for the week ahead, I told a lot of people where we were at on Monday, May the 1st, is not where we're going to be at the end of the week. Now, here we are going into Monday, May the 8th, and we have a very different perspective. We have a different perspective on a situation. We have a different perspective on a specific person. We have a different perspective on a set of events that have occurred. We have a different perspective of a pattern that somebody has been displaying that we didn't pick up on for a while. And the way that we were able to pick up on it, the way that we were able to understand it, the way that we were able to get clarity to a situation was through another person, another event, another encounter, another moment of seeing that same event again, but it didn't happen to you, it happened to them. Wait a minute. Are you just gaslighting everybody? Do you just lie to everybody? Do you just try to play games with everybody? There were certain things throughout the week of the eclipse that required getting through a fog, required getting through a confusion, required additional help and support to get through that fog, to understand the moment, to understand the energy. There was a part of last week where new connections were made, where reconnections were made. And when we made those reconnections or those new connections, the dots started to get lined up. The pattern started to get recognized. The information started to get a lot more clear. I didn't say that. Well, he said you did. Well, he said you said this. I didn't say that. She said you did this. Well, she said you did this. That's not true. I didn't do that. Receipts, screenshots, documentation, recordings. The CYA mentality came in full effect. Proof. He said this to you, and that wasn't true. He said this to me, and that's obviously not true. Now we see the common denominator. Now we see the other perspective. We see the people that have been lying. We have seen the people that have been trying to pull the wool over our eyes. We see the pattern of deception. We see the pattern of lies. We've been watching this person that when they're out and about, like they're never answering our calls, but whenever they're with you, they're always on their phone. So why wouldn't they answer? Dots have been connected. Clarity has been provided. Now, for some of us, we have been stuck in a rut and we've had this whole different mindset of like, I need to work on this. I need to focus on this. I need to deal with just this. And that thing got done. And we picked our head up and we went, what just happened? What is going on? Oh, well, so-and-so said this, so-and-so made a decision, so-and-so did whatever it was. Why? And we were that outside source. We were giving that perspective. We took a hold of the situation and started to hammer it out, clear some things up, put new things in perspective, fix a few things. The fixing reconnected us or connected us to somebody who needed us. Some of us, we were the helpers. Some of us, we were the people that were helping people gain control of where they were being manipulated, gain control of where abuses of power have been. Some of us, we are seeing exactly where a shift is, and either we're seeing people grab their power back and they're taking more control and they're taking things into themselves and onto themselves, and others are the support. And we're the ones that's trying to get people to take those next steps forward. Now, if you are the ones that's been playing games, if you have been the one that has been the manipulator, if you have been the one who thought you were pulling slick shit and nobody knew that you had a fake Tinder profile and nobody knew that you were flying to another state for all these business trips and seeing a girlfriend that nobody knew about, suddenly you've been caught. Some of you don't even know you've been caught. Some of you have no idea because it hasn't been presented to you yet. I feel like if you don't have an idea, it's going to hit you here in the next few days because I can see how those transits are going to lay out. Some of you, you're doing the cutoff and you're letting things go and you're pushing something away and you are putting and renewing your focus into another area, whether that's on yourself or whether that's on an area where you had made sacrifices so this person could do well and support this person, but the whole time they've been taking advantage of you. Now, fuck you. I'm going to do things my way. I'm going to take care of my own damn self. I'm going to do my own damn thing. Piss on you. Piss on you. A lot of us are coming out of a week of true shifts in perspective. We know who's for us. We know who isn't. We have a whole different way of thinking of things. We know the verdict and the decision, and that verdict and decision is now going to lead to a whole different set of actions that couldn't have been taken until that verdict and that decision was made. Some of us didn't know what was going on in our relationship, and we thought we were going to go to counseling and work some things out. And then you're at work one day and here you go, divorce papers. You've been served. You've been served. Congratulations. Some of you thought you were doing some slick shit before, and all of a sudden what you have in front of you is a protective order saying to stay away from certain people, to not go towards them, to not go near them, because your shit has been found out. Your abuse will no longer be tolerated. Your manipulation will no longer be allowed to happen. Your lies will no longer be heard. And some of you are scrambling and you're trying to do the flood of talking to all your flying monkeys because you can no longer gaslight the person. You no longer have that contact. You no longer have that ability. So you're trying to manipulate the story around them to isolate them. And the thing is, the whole reason you got found out is because support is already there. Somebody has come into the door. Somebody has come into the equation. Somebody else had additional receipts. Now, there are a lingering few that haven't had the full amount of information come through. They feel it in the bottom of their stomach. They feel it in their chest. They feel it in their heart, but it hasn't happened yet. That's the thing about eclipse energy and the human effect. Sometimes it doesn't happen during the eclipse. Sometimes it happens in the weeks following. And in the weeks following the eclipse that occurred on May the 8th, we will also start to transition. And for the first few weeks, we will have a timeline where both Mars eclipse activations and Venus eclipse activations are in the fold, are a part of the equation. And as we get to certain activation points this week, because this is the week that we start to hit them, I will go over them. We are starting to intertwine timelines. We are starting to weave points together. And that will be a part of the energy this week. We're starting to revisit certain recent timelines, but some of us are revisiting things all the way to last year, last spring to summer, from the first eclipse, official eclipse, that occurred at the end of April, all the way until Uranus turned retrograde in August. Some of us are hitting a point where we see how something has gone. We see where we've had to be flexible in our methods and we've had to make certain sacrifices. And now we're going to start to see karma start to give us different blessings in that energy. We're going to start to see certain things finally start to fall into place that we anticipated and wanted, and we set an intention for a year ago. But for one reason or another, people weren't ready. People weren't able to commit. People weren't able to connect. Those intentions also tied along with setting in certain fears, because that eclipse occurred, that new moon eclipse in Taurus in 2022 occurred right as Pluto turned retrograde. So we set in one moment hopeful intentions on the future and prosperity and where we want to go in life, emotional connections, deep connections. I want to have a future with you. I want to have a future with you. I want to do these things with you. I want to do them with you. And then one person set forward because they meant what they said. And I'm not saying that the other didn't mean it, but suddenly reality set in and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not ready. I can't commit to this yet. I can't do this yet. I know you want to expand the business, but we don't have the funds for it. I know you want to move in together, but I don't think I'm ready after all. I know you want our families to meet, but I'm not ready for your family to meet my craziness. Like, it's not. I know you want to move here. I know you want to do this. I know you want to go back to school. I know you want to start this business. I know you want to, but something wasn't ready. Either a person or just in general, the energy wasn't ready at the time. And as we start to get into parts of this week, we are going to start to revisit parts of last spring. As we continue through this week, we're going to start to intertwine parts of last year into parts of this year. And I'm going to really put it into perspective. We are always purposeful with our goals, but we must be flexible with our methods. Because in some way, shape, or form, some of the goals that we've been working on, some of the work that we've been doing and the healing that we've been doing it by ourselves. We haven't had support. Support is coming. For some of us, support just came through. And you're seeing new members of your soul tribe. You have made a connection with somebody based off of shared experience and shared abuse and shared manipulation. Some of that manipulation was what just got broken through. Some of that is like doing the deep dive into the past and telling your side of the story and how something affected you, and they're sharing similar events, and you're starting to regretfully bond over trauma, given the way this full moon just went. But you're also empowering one another, and you're also starting to build one another up, and you're also starting to affirm that shouldn't have happened to you. We're worth more. We can do better together. We can do something different. We don't have to deal with this. We don't have to settle for this. Well, I'm scared to do something by yourself. Well, you're not by yourself because I'm here now. You're not by yourself because I'm your homie now. We a team. Things are changing. Things are adjusting. New people are looking out for you. New people are coming to the fold. And old people this week will start to come back. So, Monday, May the 8th, I'm still trying to process that we are in May. I really am. But there's a dynamic that has changed, and that specifically changed not just from the eclipse, but there's another dynamic that changed on Sunday the 7th, going into this week. This is the last week of the Mercury retrograde, so that's a good thing. However, this is also the first, on Monday morning, that first 24 hours of Venus in Cancer. And Venus in Cancer, and her energy here, has changed the dynamic of the Mercury retrograde. Where before, Mercury and Venus in mutual reception, that means that these two areas were working intertwined with one another. Now it's not so much. Venus is still hosting Mercury, but Mercury's not in co-host anymore. Mercury's not sending energy back to her. Mercury's not helping her in the situation. Venus isn't helping, isn't getting that support. Venus isn't getting that energy from Mercury. Venus is the one providing everything to Mercury. And that means that where before we needed to get clarity on certain communication and certain things that have been spoken and certain transactions that have happened and certain ideas and perspectives and manipulations and fraud and deceit, we have clarity on them now. Verdicts have been reached. Courts have made decisions. Lies have come to the surface. And now we're in a whole different energy, because the last week of this Mercury retrograde is going to have a lot more of an emotional feeling to it. And I do feel like it is Venus in this exuded happy, milk and honey, vibrant energy that she has in Cancer, it is this moment of Venus being in this area that we start to heal certain wounds. Some of them are deep wounds, some of them are long-term wounds, some of them are recent surface wounds, but Venus is going through and she's stitching it up and she's putting some band-aids there, and there's going to be some emotional reconnections and reevaluations and reinventing and re this week. Now, we start the day, the moon is in Sagittarius. The moon is going to perfect a sextile to Neptune and a square to Jupiter in the later parts of the day. We have Mercury starting to slow down because, again, by Sunday, he will be turning direct. So we are in the final week of this Mercury retrograde, and he is slowly starting to settle back into a sextile with Saturn. There are people that, when getting revisited, are going to be the Saturnian ones. They're going to be the authority figure. They're going to be the responsible one. They are going to be the guardian. They are going to be the person of higher placement. They're going to be the decision maker. Some of the times this is going to be reconnecting with a parent. Some of this is going to be reconnecting with a grandparent. Some of us, this Mercury sextile to Saturn this week is going to be having to literally deal with authority figures over a past situation. So again, think of courtroom stuff, but this can also be going back to the bank, going back to certain institutions, applying for a loan, reapplying for a loan, getting your documents over so you can close a loan. But there is some transactional parts to Mercury and the long-term sextile to Saturn we're going to be dealing with all week. But then there is going to be the other side of that, and it's going to involve certain people and certain moments in time and certain adjustments in mindset that push for reconnection. Here's the moon. As we continue the day, the moon will reach the moon will reach its square. I think I bumped that whole thing a minute ago. The moon will be meeting a square with Neptune and then afterwards hitting a trine to Jupiter. I said that backwards a minute ago. So moon square, Neptune, moon trine, Jupiter. There can be some confusion midday. There can be some frustrations. There can be questioning, like if you've recently had a verdict, now you're questioning how you deal with the result. One part of it is given relief. The other part of it is going, well, crap. If the decision was to separate, then somebody has to move. If you're the person that has to move, I don't know where I'm moving to yet. I don't know how to make this part happen. But the thing is, if it's definitely, especially if it's court related, in a lot of ways, you have to make the decision quickly. If you just found out your boyfriend was cheating and y'all live together, again, we're having this moment of trying to figure out how to do something, how to make something happen, how to, get through a fogginess. And then by the time we get to the evening and the moon hits that trine to Jupiter, we're feeling good about what's going on. We're feeling good about the decisions that have been made and that things are progressing and that certain actions that have been taken, certain moments in the energy to break us out of the frog and break us out of certain confusion is going to be a little bit more exciting. It's going to lead to levels of excitement. It's also part of a closeout in a certain way. Now, the other thing about the last half of the 8th going into the 9th is the Sun and Uranus. Now, this energy, this conjunction, it starts on the 8th, but it doesn't happen on the 8th. It actually happens on the 9th. But the first little revelations, the first little breakthroughs, the first little things of coming to light, they can happen here. They can happen here. But for more people, it's going to happen on Tuesday. Now let's talk about Tuesday. I'm going to bump this forward. Later in the evening, the moon's going to go into Capricorn and immediately hit this opposition to Venus. There is going to be some serious conversations about Venusian-like things. What's going on in Venus's sign, the Sun-Uranus conjunction. There's going to be that first inkling of something coming to the surface, something coming to light, something being understood. There is going to be a serious conversation about emotions, about where we are at in our emotions, how we feel about another person, because where is the host of the moon in Capricorn? Where is Saturn? In Pisces. In those deep ocean level emotions area, in the depths, that's where Saturn is. That's where he plunged back in March, and that's where he's been taking his time messing with. And there is going to be some very serious conversations about emotions and about how we feel about somebody, and how somebody feels about us, or how we want to progress with something, or how we want to take a certain act or a certain path. And if it is a certain path, then it is likely to be tied to Venusian energies. Some of you, it's going to be as mundane as, what do you want to go eat? Like, do you want to cook, or you want to go to dinner? You want to go do something for our anniversary? Oh, you actually remembered it. For others, it's going to be along the lines of, somebody still has feelings for you, right? You know, there's this whole other situation. If you don't, you should. And there's going to be revelation. There's going to be certain things that come to light. There's going to be certain inklings and seeds being planted. And that's going to happen between this opposition to the moon and that sextile to Saturn. Now, that's when the energies happen. That doesn't necessarily mean that's when the events happen. What you could actually go into is you have that moment where somebody approaches you or contacts you or DMs you going, so-and-so single. I heard so-and-so's back in town. I heard. You okay? You good? I know some shit just happened. You good? So for some people, it can be check-in energy. For others, it's going to be facing certain emotions and facing certain feelings, or desiring to face certain feelings and feeling that it's time to do that, but we haven't fully had the conversation yet. It's more along the lines of putting part of the plan in motion, or getting the solid evidence that you should revisit and you should go back. Now, in the overnight hours, the moon is going to hit this sextile to Saturn, but also this trine to Mercury. And that's why I was saying it is somewhere between the overnight of the 8th going into the 9th, that there is going to be the first part of the unexpected, of the excited, of the unplanned, of the sudden burst energy that is tied to the Sun and Uranus. Now that perfects later in the day, and I'm going to stick to that here in just a second. But to get to that point of bringing something to the surface and certain revelations and having certain emotional conversations, there has to be a match. There has to be fuel. There has to be something in the energy that lights that fire to make certain people take steps and make things happen and go in a certain direction. Oh, so we have the moon. Again, sextile to Saturn. Mercury's re-entering that sextile to Saturn. When these two hit the trine, it can be a little bit of another layer, and it could be more along the lines of, are you going to Mom's this weekend? Oh yeah, it's Mother's Day. Yeah. Okay, well, I need to know, are you picking up the cake? Are you picking up anything? Are you cooking anything? Are you doing anything? Should we be doing this together? And there's going to be this like little flurry of like people talking about a plan, or going somewhere, or talking to somebody, or doing something. And I'm going off the mundane effect of talking about Mother's Day with that example, but it could be more than Mother's Day. It could be along the lines of two people from two different areas that are going to reach a destination. I'm packing. What time are you leaving? I'm leaving at this time. What time are you leaving? I'm leaving at this time. I'm going to be a little bit later because I got to do some work stuff. So you're going to beat me there. And it's going to be that type of like action and planning and putting something in perspective for another, towards another, in a specific direction. One person is coming in new. One person, it's a revisit. One part of it is rehashing, redoing. And another part of it, with that intertwining of weaving of timelines, one part of it is new. New perspective, new input, new support, new ideas. Now let's get this Sun-Uranus connection on top of each other. So I want to talk about this. Last summer, Uranus got to the 18-degree mark right at the late part of July, and that's how he finished July. That's where he was all of August. That's where he was all of September, and he didn't finally move off that mark until the end of the Mercury retrograde that occurred last September, October in Virgo, the one that went between Virgo and Libra. Like literally, the Mercury retrograde ended and Uranus finally moved off something. However, there were events from last summer between the later parts of June, so the last 2 to 3 weeks of June, all the way until August, where we had a ripple effect of hitting the brakes, changing the plan, something not coming to fruition, something not able to come together, some action that wasn't able to be made. And the thing is, by the time August hit, we were done fighting it. We were done fighting the inevitable, and we just finally gave in. We made sacrifice. We gave into something. We stopped trying to take forward steps. We stopped trying to get new momentum. We stopped something somewhere. Now, it was at the 18-degree, 55-minute mark. Here it is, right here, that Uranus turned retrograde, and that was back on August 20th. And it was by the time we got to the end of August that's when we made the sacrifice. That's when we threw our hands in the air. That's when we gave up. We spent all summer, they're not living with me. I'm not going to do this. This is not going to happen this way. No. Because we didn't want to be flexible in our methods. We just wanted things our way. And then we got to the end of August and we're like, so here's your room. Here's your keys. Here's the door code. Here's this, and you're helping that person change their address. You're helping that person move in with somebody. You're helping another person. And we started to make sacrifices, and we started to allow for another energy to come in. We quit with certain levels of independence. Now, since the beginning part of this year, so since January, whenever Uranus has turned direct, little by little, many of us have been able to start making some forward motions, but we're making forward motions by like reactivating things that we were already doing, finally completing a task that we didn't get to do last year, or if we made the plans last year, now we have finally done the first levels of execution, but we haven't taken things to the next step. The thing about the energy of this week is we can finally start to take the next step. And it is after the sun hits its conjunction to Uranus and they perfect that Uranus finally leaves shadow. He's finally going to start to hit new areas of the sky, and for the new areas of the sky to really start to be understood, something else has to be revealed. Something else must come to light. Something else gets announced. There's something in the energy. Unexpected, unplanned, considering this is happening in Venus's sign, where Mercury is also retrograde and Mercury is coming back into this sextile with Saturn. It tells me that some of the events that are coming through, some of the changes, some of the transformations, some of this excitement, it's now time to revisit. It is time to reconnect. It is time for an adjustment. Is that adjustment happening all in one day? No. It's more activating parts of the time and parts of the timeline. And that will continue as this week continues, because we are starting to blend certain energies. And this feels like a very big Venusian energy that is finally going to make waves to get us out of all the Martian energy that we've just dealt with. Uranus was a big player in just about every full moon, including the eclipses. Huge player. The Leo full moon we had earlier this year, it squared Uranus. The the Pisces full moon last year, the Aquarian full moon, the Capricorn full moon, the Cancer full moon, they all made hits to Uranus. They all made little hits and adjustments to this area of excitement, to this area of independence, and to this area of innovation, and to this area connected to technology. There have been little hits in this area, but we were never actually able to do new things. We've been stuck in one way, shape, or form dealing with a situation that arose last year, that started to occur last August. We're finally going to, one, break from that timeline, and two, take new steps forward, take new innovative steps forward. Moving the moon along, all through Capricorn, we're getting now into the main part of the day. The Sun-Uranus conjunction, it perfects on the 19th. So again, some of the revelations, some of the surprises, some of the things that are going to come through, they can happen anywhere between the 8th and the 9th. I don't really feel like they're going to last past the surprise element of this energy. I don't think that's going to last past, I'm going to say Thursday. For most people, it's going to happen Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday will be kind of that last part, because that's when the moon is going to square these. So hear me out on that. Now, as the day progresses, on the 9th, the moon is going to hit a square to Chiron. And right as it hits that square to Chiron, it's also entering a trine and the moon. And that's going to go into parts of the energy of the 10th. So some of these, it's going to be like, there's certain things that have just come to the surface. There are certain things that are happening, and we are starting to have serious conversations to fix something, to heal something, to work through something, to take steps forward. And that's the whole part of the Sun-Uranus part, is some of the part of what's coming to light aids in the healing, and aids in the fixing, and aids in taking the step forward. Some of us can be up all night talking to somebody from the 9th to the 10th. Some of us are going to be up all night thinking about whatever situation that got talked about that arose when the moon in Capricorn was making that opposition to Venus. You should talk to her. She still has feelings for you. What are you talking about? How do you know that? Why do you even know anything? Where did you come from? Oh, she and I are friends now. I heard about you. I heard about the situation. We're closer, but I've known you longer. So, I'm telling you, you should probably talk to her. You should probably call. You should probably reach out. You should try. What? And you get in this moment where you're thinking overnight, because that was the revelation. And that was the part we weren't expecting. And you have to take a moment to process and almost put a plan together in some ways, and really put perspective. How do I fix this? How do I handle what was just revealed to me? What do I do with this? In some aspects, it's not even us that had the revelation, it's somebody else, and it's us just trying to process it. You come home from working overnights, and what do you find is that your roommate has her boyfriend that she ain't talked to in over a year suddenly in her bedroom because they were fixing their situation. Humor me on that one. And you're just kind of like, oh, well, that's good. I'm going to bed now, especially if you do overnight working. Good for you. It's like discovering the reset. When the moon hits that trine to Uranus and the sun, it's like coming into the door and seeing the recent revelations, seeing the recent change, seeing the new thing. You come home and there's new TVs all through the house. Like, where did this all come from? I was gone for 12 hours. I was at work. What did you do? It's okay. It's okay. Okay. It's okay. Don't worry about it. We're good. We're good. And we're having this moment where Mercury is re-entering its sextile to Saturn. And Saturn is in this energy of emotions and dealing with wounds and dealing with the trauma. And we've had recent events remove certain distractions. And by removing the distractions and removing certain parts of the chaos and removing the person that created a fog that didn't allow for you to progress, now we're realizing that the fog is gone, that maybe we still have feelings for that other person too. Maybe we still have something that we want to deal with, that we want to talk about. Maybe we need to still be open to this area that we cut off. And we're starting to have very serious reconnections in the energy. Now, as the energy progresses into the 10th and the moon is still in Capricorn, the other thing that's going to happen is that right about lunchtime, to be specific, the moon is going to hit an opposition to Mars. So here's the moon in Capricorn, making an opposition to Mars at 24 degrees. This is perfecting anywhere between 11:30 p.m. to 2 p.m. So there can be some frustrations midway through the day. For some of us, that's going to be, telling somebody else about the situation and them trying to tell you not to do it. For some of you, it's going to be just going to work and seeing that something that you dealt with the week before didn't get handled correctly, and now you're frustrated with the situation. But there can be some tension and there can be some arguments. And for some of you, I need you to be very, very aware of whether you're projecting or not. Patience. Your chart ruler, I'm sorry, the host of I'm so used to saying chart ruler. The host of the moon in Capricorn is Saturn in Pisces right now. I didn't make this mistake, it's your mistake. No, you wrote the order form. We're avoiding certain frustrations. Or we're projecting our own internal frustrations on somebody else that doesn't deserve it. Be mindful when we get to the mid part of the 10th. There can be some arguments, there can be some back and forth, there can be some frustrations, and it can lead to some additional confusion because after the moon hits this opposition to Mars, it's going to hit a sextile to Neptune. Now, the other thing about whenever it hits this sextile to Neptune is that it might not be as confusing as expected. It might not be confusion at all, but it might actually start to be the first inklings of nostalgia and recollection. And I'm going to say romanticism and dreaminess, and hear me out on this. I said when we got to certain activation points that I'm going to start to talk about them when we get there. This is where this one starts. Neptune is now at 27 degrees. If you think back to where we were at the end of April of 2022, specifically April 29th to 30th, going to the first few days of May, there was a conjunction of Venus and Jupiter at 27 degrees. It is an activation point for that marker because that conjunction occurred during the new moon eclipse in Taurus, during the Venusian eclipse, the first official eclipse, by the way, that started our eclipse cycle. I'm not counting that out of sign that happened in November of 2021. We set intentions when Venus made a conjunction to Jupiter. Boastful, hopeful, long-term, emotional commitments and connections. We started to look at certain desires, and those things became intentions that were set in the eclipse, that were set in that new moon. The problem is that new moon and that eclipse and those intentions all occurred when Pluto was turning retrograde. And so in one place, we're seeing the ability to shift certain power and transform an area of our life, and understanding that these intentions can transform more than just one area. It can transform parts of our identity. It can transform into future connections. Venus-Jupiter connections can be very long-term commitments. It can be marriage. It can be soulmate. It cannot, I don't like twin flame. I am not a twin flame pro person. If you have two people burning and no air to feed said burn, eventually you're going to burn each other. So I'm not a twin flame person, but I am a soulmate, soul tribe person. There were intentions set with somebody. There were intentions to set to do something, and that intention was set at the end of April of 2022. However, all of those full moons that followed, The first one, that Libra full moon, that squared that Pluto before it turned retrograde. Then the eclipse that squared. And if you didn't watch my eclipse video, you'll see what I'm talking about, because I actually talked about exactly that. And then that final Sagittarius full moon of the 3 fulls that I'm talking about, that squared Neptune. We set intention. We realized we didn't have time to be able to continue something. We set moment and tried to deal with the confusion. And the thing is as things continued, the Venusian energy after Jupiter, after the Jupiter conjunction, was, I'm going to continue working. I want to take the steps forward. I'm going to be working on the plan. I'm going to be working through something. And the thing about Jupiter is it only went to the 8-degree mark of Aries, and then it turned retrograde. Now, it started to slow down in June. It turned retrograde at the end of July. And it was retrograde in August when Uranus turned retrograde. So one of the reasons that we gave in and made certain sacrifices, tying back to the Sun-Uranus conjunction that is also going on this week, was because in some ways we had lost certain hopes. If the intention was to start to move towards a partner and start a business or start a relationship or take something to the next level, and then all of a sudden that person wasn't ready and that person was pumping the brakes, then one of the reasons that you made the sacrifice or you made, certain decisions was because you had lost certain parts of your hope. Well, that's over now. Trust me on that. Okay. We're starting to reactivate this eclipse point. And it was at the 27-degree mark that Venus and Jupiter perfected their conjunction. It was at the 27-degree mark that our new moon intentions, our long-term, emotional, hopeful intentions were set. And Neptune's energy there is going to be one of two things. It is either going to be having that energy from then dissolve, because if our hopes has been that somebody's going to come back through, or somebody's going to pull their head out of their ass, somebody's going to do a turnaround, then you're going to get that final confirmation that the turnaround's not happening. But considering this sextile to Neptune also includes the moon square to Jupiter, there can be very serious conversations about the hopes and the actions and the plan. And some people will start to feel the first inkling, the first little drop of manifestations, the first wave, the first little drop, the first moment of that timeline being weaved in to the current timeline. And we are going to start to see either the dissolution or the dissolving of the intentions that were set a year ago, or we are going to start to see the dreamy manifestation energy start its effect. Where have you done the work? Where is your karma? Where are things going? How have things progressed? Did you do your individual work, or did you let certain things burn up? We're starting to revisit those energies. And part of that energy is based off of some of the things that have just been revealed. And certain conversations need to be had. In some ways, we're going to have a bit of nostalgia, especially, this is Neptune energy. We're really going to be talking about where our hopes were, where our plans were, what the goal was at that time. The square to Jupiter is going to be how we can pick up where we left off, how we can pick up the momentum, how far we are now, and how we continue from here. You've been gone. I still wanted it. So this was my plan, whether you were here or not. So I'm going to do my thing. And I've been doing my thing. And that's going to be a part of that moon square to Jupiter. Just because you weren't around doesn't mean that I wasn't still doing the work. Just because you weren't a part of the picture doesn't mean that this wasn't still my goal. This was going to be my goal, whether it was you or not. That's this energy. There can be some frustrations. There can be some nostalgia. But there can be accepting responsibility, accepting certain conversations, accepting new ways of doing things, but also emotional purging and emotional release. We have emotions coming through. It's going to be more later in the week, but however, there are going to be still waves of having emotional conversations. Okay. So I'm going to progress this. We're going to keep going. We're getting to the later part of the day. And then right after 9 p.m., the moon is going to go into Aquarius, and it's going to make this conjunction to Pluto. Now, there's a lot of little transits going on, but I feel like a lot of the 10th is dealing with some internal things based off of what has just been revealed and what has just come to the surface, or what was just announced, or something along these lines. And when the moon hits this conjunction to Pluto, this can either be like, again, running into somebody from the past, or it can be that first moment, especially since the eclipse, of seeing the transformation and seeing the change. I said that the full moon was meant to be a lot of people taking back their personal power, taking back, certain energies that have been shared with others that they did not deserve, that they have manipulated the situation, and we have caught the lies and we've caught the cheating. And now this moment of the moon's conjunction to Pluto can be like talking about what you found out. This can be a whole separate situation from the rest. This can be the continued conversation and even bringing somebody up to speed of recent events, not just what happened last summer, but some of the recent events. It can be a mix of both. It can be like another person coming into the conversation like, oh yeah, you missed it. You missed all the drama. And you're catching them up while the other person's sitting there. And even they're getting caught up going, where's my popcorn? It's been a hell of a week. Yeah, it was a hell of a week. It was definitely a hell of a week. The moon's conjunction to Pluto is either seeing the transformation, seeing where transformation needs to continue, or seeing the personal power and the overcoming of power struggles. If they haven't been able to overcome the power struggles, then more than likely the moon is meant to be that support to engage regaining personal power. I did just discover on Monday and Tuesday those screenshots, and I just got those receipts, and I had that is the delayed effect. This could be facing that, facing a fear, facing frustration, and facing what we don't necessarily want to face. For some people, this is going to be a very hard look in the mirror, but we have to do the wonky baby step process to take things forward. When the moon goes into Aquarius, there's going to be a lot more conversation. I look at this moon conjunction to Pluto and all the recent events and the fact that we had the sun's conjunction to Uranus. We're having Mercury, so people from the past, the rethinking, the revisiting, the reinventing, the reimagining, the reconnecting is coming into that sextile with Saturn. This can be a mix of both the new and the old, and I think for a lot of people, it's going to be both. And I will also remind everybody, as motivated as we are, as exciting as everything has been, remember there can always be too much of a good thing. And we can only progress so much. You cannot heal years worth of wounds in a day. You can talk about some of them, but then you still have to allow for time and processing. This can be a final jolt to the system, or this can be seeing somebody taking back their personal power, or this can be understanding parts of your own transformation, or helping somebody else understand where you are at in your transformation and where you are at in your healing process. Okay. So I'm going to keep progressing this by hour as we get into the 11th. The moon is going to stay in Aquarius, so there's going to be a social aspect to the energy. And by the time we get to the morning, the moon is going to hit that square to Mercury as Mercury is re-entering and perfecting the sextile to Saturn. There is going to be obstruction. There is going to be some confusion. There's going to be some questioning, like, are you sure you want to go back there? Are you sure you want to have that lunch? Maybe the day before or in the days before, what you did is you did that first part of the reconnection, that first moment of like saying, hey, can we talk? Yeah, but I don't want it to be through text message. It's got to be in person. I don't, I don't want to do this over the phone. I don't want to do this in text message. Like I want to see you. I want to see your face. I want to see your expression. I want to see certain things. And this can be exactly that. And then somebody questioning you going, are you absolutely sure you want to go? You want to go by yourself? You don't want anyone to go with you? No, I don't want to go with you. No, you don't need to go with me. I'm a big girl. I know what I'm doing. I don't need this. Another part of this can be the questioning about how things are going to progress, how something is going to go. Or if you're just in the travel mode, then it can be like obstructions in the road and keeping you from getting there on time and making you late. There can be other little things that pop up that keep you from moving forward. Car troubles around this time, communication, technology issues can be a part of the day on the first part of the 11th. Technology issues can be any part of this week, and I didn't say that sooner. I should have. Technology issues can be a part of this week because the sun's conjunction to Uranus and then Mercury is retrograde. So there can be technology issues, and I feel like when that is the case, it's either going to happen that Monday into Tuesday or while the moon is in Aquarius. So be aware of that. Oh, are you doing the right thing? Are you making the right decisions? Are you doing R? You've already had time to rethink. You've already had time to refocus. You've already made a reconnection. Or this is that final jolt to push the reconnection. Oh, so-and-so said I should call her and I haven't called her yet. Well, why have not? I don't know how it's going to go. Well, figure it out. It's like Schrodinger's cat in that situation. You're not going to know if it's alive or not until you open the box. Until then, it's either way. You have to make the leap. You have to make the decision. You have to make that reconnection. You have to go talk to that authority figure. You have to go see your mom. You have to do these parts. In some ways you're reluctant. In some ways you're going to have, some hesitancy on outside sources going, but you hate your mom. Why are you going back? Why are you going there? Why are you having lunch? Why are you doing that? Because I feel like I need to. I feel like it's the right thing to do. Okay. That moon will square Mercury as Mercury's re-entering that sextile to Saturn. Saturn, again, authority figures, government, banks, institutions, boundaries. It can be elders, it can be guardians, it can be people of authority or authority figures, people that you respect. If you look at somebody that they're the person of a certain level of expertise, then it's going to them for guidance, going to them for their experience. And some of those, it's a serious moment of timely reconnection this week. Not just this transit, this week. The moon is going to progress through Aquarius. Again, there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of airiness to it, considering that Venus is in Cancer. There can also be a lot of emotional conversations, especially during that timeline when the moon was squaring Mercury. After the good thing about the 11th is a lot of the 11th is just kind of like the carryover from the day before. It is not a huge day. If there's a day that you need to get caught up on everything and caught up on your work and caught up on your favorite shows, or you need to run your errands, you need to do something and you're going to have the least amount of obstruction, do it on Thursday. Do it on the 11th. Oh, as we get into the 12th, the moon's still in Aquarius. What's going to happen is in the overnight hours, the moon is going to square Chiron. I'm sorry, I keep fluffing them up. I'm sorry. The moon is going to sextile Chiron, and then it's going to enter a square to both Uranus and the sun. Now, again, be aware of technology, be aware of things coming through technology. But I think a lot of where this conversation starts to go is, how do we fix something with the sextile to Chiron? How do we deal with certain recent events that have been expressed and that have been shown? How are we reconnecting with certain people? How are we dealing with recent events? How are we going through the motions? And there can be some ideas of how to move forward or how to address something or how to continue with something. There can be some interesting conversations. There can be some additional relevance. There can be new layers to what has gone on. Not whole new situations, new layers to past events. There can also be other people learning about your past events because people like to gossip. Oh my God, I just heard. Like, girl, that was like 5 days ago. I'm over it. I'm moving forward. We ain't getting stuck in the past. We moving. We moving along. Now, here's the other part to the 12th. Just like Neptune, now at the eclipse point where Jupiter and Venus made their conjunction, now on the 12th, Jupiter is starting its visit over the Mars eclipse point. So we have this dreamy, confusing, not directly understood, almost romanticized, spiritual, allowing manifestations or dissolving certain ideas and certain progress that was previously made. And then we're looking at Jupiter over that eclipse point from April 19th. So an eclipse point from April of 2022 and an eclipse point from April of 2023, both are getting activated this week. Intertwining timelines, intertwining events, bringing old in with the new, layering parts of those together, bringing people up to speed, teaching them new things, letting them know where progress has been made, letting them know where progress needs to continue. And there is this layering effect to the energy. Jupiter is now over the eclipse point that we just made. Some of the intentions we set with that new moon are now going to have a hopeful turn, a hopeful boasting, a noticeable shift to take something to the next level. Now, the only way that I could actually see this going in a negative sense is depending on what occurred during that eclipse. Were you one of the people? This is literally just a few weeks ago, so I'm not even addressing some. I'm not asking you to remember a year ago this time. I'm literally talking about less than a month ago. What occurred during the new moon eclipse? What was going on between the 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st, whenever Mercury turned retrograde? Because that's how that went. It was eclipse, limbo 420, retrograde. Boom, there it was. What were we working on? Where were we putting our energies? Where did we make certain proclamations? Because that new moon, what did it do? It immediately went into a new sign and squared Pluto. So for a lot of people, as that new moon was perfecting, we felt the need to call people out on their shit, to make a certain trip somewhere, to say a certain thing, to put perspective to something. And immediately afterwards, the sun square to Pluto was a shift in the way that we saw that energy. It was either calling somebody out on their actions and the abuse and their manipulation. For some people, it was the first inkling and the first moment where you saw that they had been lying to you, where you saw the manipulation, but you weren't clear on it yet. You didn't have a full understanding. So we started to stew and we were very, very frustrated. Now with Jupiter coming into this mark, we're not stewing anymore. And we have a whole new level of support. We've had this whole new person come in, this whole different energy come in to join in. It's more along the lines of talking about how we progress from here. And again, we're either doing this moment of bringing in the new person, or we're bringing in the old person, or we're doing both. We're doing both. Here's the moon in a square to Uranus. In the few hours afterwards, all before noon, the moon is actually going to square the sun. We'll have our quarter moon, and we'll start to feel some things are winding down while others are taking shape. And I don't want to say build up, I mean like taking shape, falling into place, getting a new idea. Oh, we were going to start a business together. I can't believe he was cheating on me. I can't believe he did all these things. I still want this, but I need I need somebody else. I need a partner. I got money. What? I got money. Flexible in our methods, purposeful in our goals. That support is starting to really take a different shape. This new energy in your area, in your vibe, in your surroundings, whether it's been a new job opportunity or a new application to college, and now we're getting the admission letter, or we're getting a new person on our side, we're starting to feel a different level of support. But it's not just the new support, there's old support too. Intertwining timelines. We're activating 2 eclipse points. It's not all going to happen this week, but it is going to happen through this week into next week. And we're starting to go into this period where we're winding down the Martian energy that we have been dealing with for many, many months. Mars has been doing a number to all of the transits from that Mars retrograde to all the squares to Neptune and everything that occurred during that time, everything that occurred in March. Now we're taking all of that disruptive, chaotic, Mars influenced energy and we're wrapping it up. We're wrapping one part of it up because what comes in next is going to be a whole different layer and a whole different ballgame. We're wrapping one part of it up. We're getting something put away and we're starting to intertwine into something new. Now, there can be ideas, issues with technology, issues with communication. But again, if it's communication, I don't feel like it's verbal. It's not you talking, it's the digital communication. There can be the wrong thing sent, the correct email sent, but the wrong attachment. And it takes a little bit to figure it out. That can be very mundane ways to work through it. But a lot of what you're trying to do is to fix something from before. It is to create a new way of doing things, to take yourself to the next level. We're finally taking new steps of independence with Uranus in new areas of the sky. Excuse me. Things are starting to fall into place. Now, after the moon squares the sun, everything's pretty chill for the 12th. I don't mind it. The allergy medicine still hasn't kicked in, guys. I'm so sorry. I really don't mind it. I feel like a lot of this energy can be very, very hopeful. There can be a lot of like good communication. Sorry. Good ideas, good activities, putting things in place, putting things in motion. Again, we're winding something down from before so a new thing can start to move into place. And the new thing is just sliding into its place. It's not taking off yet. It's getting the idea. It's lining out the new contractor. It's revising a home loan. It's putting in a new buyer. It's getting the offer on a house and now starting the next part of the process of like accepting the deal, getting appraisals done, getting inspections done. It's eliminating, slowly working one part of this off of your plate to take in another part. Now, there's just a lot of words and a lot of communication all through the 12th. So I don't mind the energy of the 12th. I love the way the Friday is going to go. I think a lot of people are just going to be able to go out and enjoy themselves afterwards. And it is on the 13th, so just after midnight. The moon is going to go into Pisces. If you're out late on the 13th for whatever reason, be aware that after midnight, when the moon goes into Pisces, that sometimes if you are out having drinks, that you'll suddenly have that where you were feeling like really good a few hours ago and just kept like sliding them back and letting them go. Then all of a sudden you get to midnight and you're like, whoa, I took too many. I didn't even think that they were that strong. Crap. So be aware of that when you get to that one part of the evening. However, more of it is going to be feeling the socialness kind of wind down. And for some people, the weight can be, I had one too many drinks, but other people be like, you know what? I am tired. I'm done. I'm not staying out to 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm leaving. I'm going in another direction. I'm going to go do something else. Now, the only thing to right as the moon goes into Pisces is this is also right when Saturn and the trine to Venus is starting to perfect. Now, I want to take us back to, sorry, I use natural light. Now I've got the sun at the right angle right here. Now I want to take us back to how things were going at the beginning of April. During the Libra full moon, and right when Mercury went into shadow, because Mercury went into shadow that week. When this Mercury retrograde started, not the actual retrograde, but the shadow phase, so the pre-shadow phase, this is around that area. And what was going on at that time is that Mercury was here direct, Saturn direct, but right where Venus is, that was Mars. That was the disruption. That was the chaos. That was us moving towards something that wasn't quite right for us. And it took a week or two, but we finally realized that and we pumped the brakes. That was a big part of the energy, and that hit right after Mercury turned retrograde. The immediate wave of like people just break, 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 break. We dealt with that then. Now we're kind of coming back to certain topics, certain decisions, certain ideas that were going on at the beginning of April, whenever we were, ending one side quest to go into another one. And the other one was tied to the Mercury retrograde. That was the disruptive energy of the Mercury retrograde. But we finished something out right around Easter that we're now rounding back to. We're now coming back full circle. We're now coming back, but we're coming back with a different influence, because instead of Mars and his chaos and his armor and his weapons and his stuff, we now have Venus. We have a very boastful, exuding all of her emotions and all of her confidence and all of the good things within her energy in Cancer. So again, there is an energy of having a revisit Mercury retrograde to people we have our emotions for, people that we have feelings for, people that we have been thinking about nonstop that we haven't been able to make a certain action. And one of the reasons we couldn't make a certain action is because we had somebody in the way. That somebody was the Mars energy. But as the month has continued, we have realized just how manipulative Mars has been. I hate to say that. I'm a natal Mars in Cancer, and I'm like, this Mars in Cancer transit had a lot of manipulation to it. And I maintain it had to do with the fact that so much was coming from Neptune and influencing Mars's activities beforehand, that it was the Mars and Cancer timeline that brought those manipulations to the surface. The scratches of surface wounds were being brought up more and more and more, and we started to catch people in their lives. Oh, Venus is here. We're reconnecting to a timeline. We're reconnecting certain emotions, certain activities, and certain actions, but there is a serious emotional conversation that has stable ground tied to it that needs to follow. And I said this at the beginning of this episode, when we get into the last part of the week, which is where we're at right now, you're going to see that. You're going to feel that. We're going to experience it. Now, right before the moon goes into Pisces, the moon is going to make a sextile to Jupiter. I didn't say that, but it does. It does make a sextile to Jupiter before going into Jupiter's sign. So there is this moment of spoken activity, hopeful conversations, hopeful plans in the atmosphere of how to get something to the next level. It was confirmation that somebody will be there in the week ahead to help with a situation. There was connection. There was the inkling of a commitment. There was the inkling of something being confirmed when the moon hit that sextile to Jupiter, and then the moon went into Jupiter's sign, and there's an awareness. The moon sextile to Jupiter, it's appreciation, it's progress, it's a moment of generosity, it's a moment of optimism, and that is going on right as Venus and Saturn are hitting their trine. I'm going to call her. Are you absolutely sure this? I'm going to call her. Go on. Go on. Mercury retrograde to Saturn. Saturn's trine to Venus. Mercury's pushing. It's hard to push Saturn. Saturn's way bigger, but Mercury's doing it. Do it. Do it, because Jupiter's going to help here in a little bit. Just do it. And for many of us, we're in this energy of like taking hopeful action. We're wanting to reinstigate certain energies, and we're revisiting certain times, and we're looking at stability, and we're looking at beauty, and we're looking at this energy that gives us hope. Not just the Jupiter-like hope, it restores something. We feel something deep within us. We feel that draw we haven't felt in a long time because we've been separated from that person. And there's a lot of emotion to this weekend. Emotional purging, emotional processing, emotional release. And that starts on the 13th. Is it all going to start at midnight? For some people it is, especially if you've been drinking. It's like, I love you so much. I love you too. What are you doing? But we get confirmation. We make that leap of faith, Saturn making that trine to Venus, but then we get some support, we get some confirmation because the moon is going to join the fun. The moon, our emotions, our intuition, ties to our dreams. Saturn, responsibility, timing, karma, authority, making this trine to Venus, emotional understanding, creativity, art, putting something in motion. Mercury in this retrograde form, being hosted by Venus, Mercury pushing that Saturn energy, the moon pushing Saturn energy. Make the call. Make the call. Go ask her to dance. Go do it. Come on, move. Stop being a stick in the mud. Move. Go. Take the action. Push forward. Look at the emotions and understand the connection involved. If you are looking at somebody that you haven't spoken to in a long time, whether this is your child, whether this is an old friend, whether this is a family member, whether this is an old romantic partner, whoever it is, it's very likely, especially if you're the Saturn energy, that you are going to see that person in a whole new light because of all of the fucking crap that you just went through. And all of the disruption that has happened in the last year. And in a lot of ways, it's going to be very restorative. We are going to have renewal in the energy, renewed energy towards somebody, renewed energy in certain commitments, renewed energy towards tradition in certain ways, depending on where we're at, especially if this is like in a family dynamic, that renewed tradition. The thing about trines is that means we're like fifth house placements. There can be things with kids. There can be things with love. There can be things with understanding. I don't feel like there's a whole lot of deceptive energy here, but I do feel like there's another element now as this weekend is progressing towards manifestation. And I'm going to bring it up right here, but it doesn't perfect here. It's not even going to perfect until next week. So I'm telling you, this is going to be one of those lingering things that takes us into next week. We have Neptune in that eclipse point where Venus and Jupiter made their conjunction. And what is happening? Neptune is starting to enter a trine to Saturn. Not Saturn. Why did I say that? Mars. I can't get any but the red thing on the screen. Mars. We have Neptune in this trine to Mars while Venus is in her trine with Saturn. It is time to have certain conversations, but it is also time for certain passions to be reignited, certain inspirations to come back through, certain creative processes, certain flows. There can be a flirtation in the energy, especially if you're reconnecting with that Venusian person and they say that witty thing that they used to say to you all the time, or they say that thing that hits you in the heartstrings and you're just like, oh yes, I remember what that felt like. I remember how you made me feel. I remember how this used to be. I don't know why I was so scared. I don't know why I ran away. I don't know why. But we can get to a better place. I don't know why we quit talking, but I know we can work on it now. I don't know why, but I feel that this can go better. And for many of you, it's going to feel like we're getting confirmation of a new appreciation for an old thing. For many of you, it's going to be, revisiting a certain place and getting confirmation that you need to go in a new direction. And we feel inspired. For some of us, those conversations aren't going to be fun. And it's going to leave certain people in a certain amount of confusion, because even though we're having that first inkling of reconnection, Mercury's still retrograde. Mercury is still going backwards. So there is going to be some people that they need time to think about what's going on. They don't have all the answers. They're not just waiting for you to come and profess all of your love like some Shakespearean thing. Oh, oh Lord, oh woo, I love you. Come back to me. Let me be with you again. Earn it. Earn it. It's not just going to be about professing. It's not just being about, reaching out to certain people that you're going to be reaching out to, or just letting these new people back into your life. Some of these people have to do some work. And in some way, shape, or form, there's going to be one element saying, prove it. Prove that you're ready. Prove that you're wanting to commit. Prove that your things are worked out. Prove that your divorce is final. Prove it. For some elements, this reconnection is going to be very quick and very inspirational and very romanticized. For others, it's going to have a temporary hesitation that comes through this weekend, not just this day, this weekend into the days following, because fine, I will prove it. Go ahead. I don't know how. I don't know how. And it takes a few days to figure it out. It's not that you're against it. Many of you, the work needs to be made, but the work has still a shadow element to it. It has an element that's not easily noticeable, that's not easily understood. And again, I'm going to say a lot of people are going to have to prove it. I did individual work. Did you? I worked through these things. Did you? I put money and time and focus into something while you were off doing whatever. I have gone this far, and I did it without you. Prove that you deserve to be a part of this now. Prove that you deserve to come in and join me, because I've been doing everything by myself and I'm doing pretty damn good on my own. Okay. Now, the proving will take time. It's not going to happen all in a day. It's not going to happen all in a weekend. And I know I'm still just talking about, Saturday morning, but it's true. And these are some of the energies that can go into this day, into where we're at and into how we work through something and start to overcome something, and how certain people are going to prove they're part of the support and they're part of that energy. Now, Sunday is the end of the retrograde. What's interesting to me about Sunday is I feel like this is where we get into the real confirmation of the prove it thing, or we figure out how to prove it. So hear me out. In the early parts of the day, which is 9:30 in the morning on this time, we have the moon at 19 degrees, and it's making a sextile to Uranus. It will later make a sextile to the sun, but then it's going to hit this conjunction to Neptune and the trine to Mars. That happens later in the day, and I want to take us to that point. Again, this is an eclipse point. This is where the Jupiter-Venus conjunction happened. There is a moment in time where we need to break through the fog, where we need to break through confusing situations, that we need to break through something. There's a moment here that whenever Venus talking to Saturn is saying, okay, you still love me, you still want to do something, you still have feelings for me, that's great. Now fucking prove it. Prove that things will be different. Prove that you're ready to commit. Prove that we're in a good place. Prove that something can move forward. Prove it. You might not know how to prove it immediately. That doesn't mean that you're wrong. In some ways, you're going to feel the energy, to talk to somebody. And as you've been talking things out, you realize like how far they have progressed. And you still have to figure out if you're ready to reconnect. And there is something about with the moon's energy to Neptune entering this building trine to Mars that isn't perfecting, but it is more building, and will again happen the next week. There can be inspiration. There can be, that moment where you're laughing and nostalgia, and that moment tends to be healing. But what happens on the later parts of the 14th, so this is at 9:29 p.m., the moon is at 26 degrees. It's coming into the conjunction to Neptune literally an hour later. After the conjunction perfects, Mercury turns direct. We break through the fog. We find new inspiration. We find new passions. We have this moment that either leads to additional procrastination and needing more time to think something over, and then realizing, I didn't need time to think it over. I just needed a minute to process. Mercury turns direct. In other ways, you've just been told to prove that you are ready to connect, you are ready to commit, you are ready to go back to school, you are ready to move in career, you are ready. And it is this moment when the moon hits that conjunction to Neptune and that trine to Mars that a light bulb, a click. Yes, I know how to prove it. It's going to take a few days. It might take a few weeks, but I'm going to prove it. Patience is key. Every day is a certain step. We can only progress so far. And if we try to progress further than we're meant to progress at that time, we have retrogrades that takes us back and makes us go rethink something and relook at something and revisit. So pace yourself. Pace yourself in the energy. We have the ability to either end this week having emotional confirmation of how to set something correct, how to fully turn something around and get something back to where it was a year ago for those that are in the reconnect mode. We also are having this moment where we are starting to learn and discover the unimaginable. We are learning something that we didn't know about because we were missing. And you're learning the learning curve. Like, that's what you're learning about. Like, you're learning like, oh, I don't know how to do any of this. Well, that's okay. You have time to learn. You have time to put that effort in. And that time to put that effort in and to do those things is one of the ways that you prove that you're connected and you're ready for this commitment and you're ready to take certain actions forward. We're ready to move certain things forward. We're ready to take certain intentions that were set a year ago that we couldn't commit to, that we couldn't live up to in promise, that we couldn't put all of our eggs in that basket because we didn't trust all elements of the basket. We didn't trust that everything had been put in place. We were afraid that the basket had been cut and the bottom would fall out very, very soon. So what did we do? We self-sabotaged. We are done with the self-sabotage. We are done with it, and we are going to start working towards overcoming recent fears, old fears, and new abundance. We have to start to transform something. We have to start to take something to the next level, and there will be actions that follow, but the actions need the right people in place. The actions will start next week, and it will go through final actions and moments in this Martian ruled timeline, and things will start to flow into more of a Venusian way. There's a bleeding of timelines that are starting to intertwine this week and next week. There's more bleeding this week. There's more tying next week. But it's all a part of bringing the timelines together, bringing things that have occurred in March, bringing the things that have occurred since all through this Mercury retrograde, bringing the things from the previous year in that first set of intentions in that eclipse that occurred again at the end of April. We are starting to weave those things together and finally take new steps forward towards progress, towards innovation, towards independence, towards something that we wanted a year ago, but we couldn't reach because it wasn't the right time. Time is starting to shape up. Time is starting to adjust. Time is starting to have a whole new meaning. And we'll start to see the inklings of that new meaning after the new moon in Taurus. Right now, this week and next week, going into the new moon, because in that next week's video will be the new moon. This whole 2-week span is, again, clearing ledger. For a lot of us, the ledger is clear. There's a final little element of revelation that comes at the first part of this week, again, between the 8th, 9th, 10th for most people, the very latest, the 11th. There can be technology issues, like I said before. I'm going to go ahead and stop the share, by the way. There can be some technology issues and some unexpected parts of this week, and I'm not denying that. I'm making that very aware. But there is going to be a lot of busyness this week, but I don't feel like this busyness is like running 50,000 errands and trying to go get all of these different parts and all of this different material. It's more along the lines of processing what has just occurred and reconnecting with certain people that we lost. Some of us, if we've just served somebody with divorce papers, the people that we're reconnecting with are our friends. They are people that were a part of our tribe before that for one reason or another, something fell out. Whether that was because of fighting and you guys got into a fight and you picked the side of your spouse, or if that was because they didn't agree with your decisions, and as opposed to like dealing with them long term, you made a decision to separate. Now you realize that that person was right and you did make a mistake. And you are the one reconnecting with certain people, and you are the one, rehashing what has just occurred and talking about your emotions and talking about the progress and getting new things in place and getting new people in place and finding new areas of support or reconnecting with certain people that have supported you in the past. This is getting to a very interesting energy in regards to like our soul tribe and the people that are there for us and the people that they're meant to be in this picture, in the next stage, in the new activity, in the new chapters. There are people that are meant to be there. Whether they're the new people or the old people, things are starting to slide into place. And they're just now sliding into place because we had to make space. There was a distraction, there was a disruption, there was something still creating chaos, and for whatever reason, we couldn't commit at a certain time, but now we can revisit those commitments. We can revisit those promises, we can revisit those intentions that have been set in the last 2 new moon eclipses that we've had in this axis. So many things are coming through. So many things are taking shape. We're phasing out of certain Martian-like qualities, like I said, and taking the very first steps into more Venusian energy. The Venusian energy that will really play out over the course of the summer. But for us to get to the things that are going to play out, we need to get things in place. This week is about getting things in place, reconnecting with the right people, and finding your soul tribe. Expect some bumps in the road in the first part of the week. Expect something to still come to the surface that you're not anticipating. And in certain situations, you might be the one providing the information. You might be the one providing the revelation. You might be the one surprising everybody. You might be the one finding the thing that you didn't want to find. Be prepared for all of it. But know that after what has just occurred and where we're going next is truly going to be into new direction and onto new paths and into new beginnings that will not just take shape over the course of a week or 2. It's going to be the slow baby steps towards things that are going to transgress and build throughout the summer. And then what we build throughout the summer and what we get to a certain level then has to go through its kinks and the works and the things that need to be done in that area. So nothing's ever completely done. But we're definitely building towards new direction and new ideas and new levels of peace and new levels of prosperity and new levels of abundance. And a lot of this area that we're heading towards, for some people, we know what it is because we set our intentions and we knew what our goal was a year ago. But for some people, where we're going next is a whole new ballgame. It's a whole new area of life. It's a whole new position. It's a whole new place to live. It's a whole new part of your life that you don't even know how big that timeline is about to be because you haven't had enough time to really put it all in perspective. Hindsight's always 2020. We can always look back and go like, man, that was such an incredible time. We had so much going on. And that's true. But we have so much coming in. And we're in that forefront time of where those rounds of activities are going to be. But these are new activities, Venusian activities, and in a lot of ways, blessings. However, for the few of you that have not been honest, that have not been doing the right thing, that have been doing the lies and been doing the manipulation, well, this is things falling away from you. This is things falling into new directions and leaving you stranded and leaving you trying to figure out things that you weren't anticipating on figuring out. It's not all going to happen this week. It's going to happen over the next few. But we're definitely reaching new territory and new ideas and new direction and finally launching the things that we've been innately putting our effort into being able to launch. We're finally getting to that point where the launch is going to happen, where things are going to happen. This is the first step in new directions with new levels of support and new ideas and new people. And for some of us, it is with renewed innovation, renewed connections, renewed thoughts, and renewed passions. We are intertwining the timelines. We're bringing in the old, pairing it with the new, and we are weaving a brand new basket, and there ain't no cuts. There's nothing to be fearful of if we're all doing the work the way we say we are. Okay, my loves, it is going to be a very big week on the internal side of trying to process things and put things in motion. As a regards to like the eventfulness, this week is not nearly as eventful as last week. This week is doing processing, emotional processing, and letting certain hesitancies fall away. Letting those barriers that we put up towards the people that shouldn't have had barriers finally fall away and working through that. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all of the love and support. I can't wait to be able to start doing more one-on-one readings with people. I really feel like that's going to be able to start in Gemini season. I've said that before, and I'm saying it again. That energy is coming. However, I can't commit to it right now. So there's some people that have messaged me that I haven't been able to return your messages even because this eclipse week has been so crazy. I'm telling you that I will be returning messages and I will be able to start setting those appointments very, very soon. It's been hard, but we're getting to a better point. So again, I love and appreciate every single one of you. Thank you again, and subscribe.